يا أيها المزمل قم الليل إلا قليلا نصفه أو انقص منه قليلا أو زد عليه ورتل القرآن ترتيلا.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulullah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Allahumma allimna ma yanfa'una wa anfa'na bima allamtana wa zidna ilma ya rabbal alameen. Now, so in the last episode, which was the 5th episode, we were talking about the second pair of sifat al-huruf. And this pair, we said, it actually contains 3 groups, or three sifat, ash-shidda, wal-rakhawa, and in between, al-bayniyya. So we talked about the letters of ash-shidda, we gave examples. The letters of al-rakhawa, or the letters of al-bayniyya, are lin umar, and the rest will be rakhawa. But because rakhawa and shidda are the 2 ends, so we'll talk about them first, and then we'll go to the letters of lin umar. So the letters of rakhawa, what are their examples? So we'll try to bring examples from the Quran. So the letters of rakhawa are tha, ha, kha, dha, za, sin, shin, صاد ضاد ظا غين فاف ها wa ya. So these are the letters of rakhawa. So what are the examples? What did we say rakhawa means? It means the running of the sound. The running of the sound as the letter is articulated at its articulation point because of the weakness of its reliance. It doesn't fully rely on the articulation point. So, tha, for example, we said athawab. So, although we gave this example in al-hams, that the sound is running, the breath is running, but the sound is also running. So, it's athawab. So, the breath is running, yes, the sound also runs. So, because the sound is running, it is ar-rakhawa, athawab. Athawab. For the ha, alam nashrah, nashrah. So you can hear the sound. You can hear the sound clearly. The kha, fakhruj minha, fakhruj minha. So the sound is clear, you can clearly hear that sound. But there's also some air that comes out accompanying. So it's hams at the same time. Ar-rakhawa, fakhruj minha. So it's not a sound that comes at just one point, it runs a bit. Fakhruj minha. And the dha, when we mentioned the dha the other time as harful jar, we said you should take note not to let the breath run. Okay, but the sound runs. So it's rakhawa. So you say وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ وَإِذْ. It's the sound that runs, but it's not the breath. وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ. So it shouldn't be with air coming out at that point. وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ. Remember, when we talked about huruf shidda, look at Rabbuk here. وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ. It really stops. The sound stops completely. But this one, you can hear the sound flowing. وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ. And then the za, فَقَدْ فَازَ. فَقَدْ فَازَ. So you can hear the z. That's the sound flowing. As for the sin, we use sin with shadda now. وَالسَّمَاء. وَالسَّمَاء. So you can hear the sound flowing with the shadda. وَالسَّمَاء. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. And then the shin. وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا. وَالشَّمْسِ. وَالشَّمْسِ. So the sound flows. The sound flows. And then the sword, we said, وَالصَّافَّاتِ صَفًّا. وَالصَّافَّاتِ صَفًّا. يَصْلَى. So you can hear the sound flowing. The next letter of Ar-Rakhawa is Dha. في لوح محفوظ. محفوظ. So you can hear without the air flowing but the sound flowing. في لوح محفوظ. في لوح محفوظ. غاين. We gave as example before. غير المغضوب. غير المغضوب. غير المغضوب. So we can hear the sound flowing on both on the غير and on the مغضوب. مغضوب. فاف. ولا تقل لهما أف. أف. So again, حرف الرخاوة. The ha مبثوثة. مبثوثة. So the hair flows and the sound, the breath flows and the sound flows. So it is both Hamza and Rakhawa. The wa في لوح محفوظ. لوح. So لو. So ولولا. ولولا. So the sound flows at the point of the articulation with the sukun. ولولا. And the ya, again, إياك نعبد. إياك. إياك. It's different from tabbat. Tabbat. It's just إياك. The sound flows. So those are the huruf al-rakhawa with some examples. Then the ones in between, in which the sound flows just a bit. It's not as much as the others. It's not as much as the huruf al-rakhawa. We said the huruf al-bayniyya or tawassut is lin umar. So lam. Alhamdu, and this is important because many times people may not let the sound to flow. So Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. So you shouldn't be saying Alhamdulillah, because in that case you are not giving it that time. It's not Alhamdulillah. So that is wrong. Alhamdulillah. So there needs to be a small drag on that point, at the point of the sukun. Alhamdulillah. Not Alhamdulillah. Not like that. So the noon, we gave before. أنعمت, أنعمت, not أنعمت, not أنعمت, because in that case you are not giving it the haq of tawassut. أنعمت, and the same thing with the mim, although the أنعمت غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. عليهم ولا عليهم عليهم. In fact, these letters of Al-Bayniyya, they are a lot in the Quran and in Surah Al-Fatiha a lot. You have Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Al-Alameen, not Al-Alameen. That's a sharp stop on the nun. You're not giving it. It's not Al-Alameen. And it's quiet. It's a bit quiet because you're just stopping. You should stay on the makhraj. Al-Alameen. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Not Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. There's a small drag. And like that. And then the ayn, إياك نعبد, إياك نعبد, نعبد, not نعبد. It's not إياك نعبد. Yes, you pronounced an ayn, but you haven't given it the full haq. It's not إياك نعبد, because that's too sharp. You are making a shidda. إياك نعبد. So there's a small drag. إياك نعبد. And the ra, والأرض, والأرض, والأرض. So there is a small drag on the ra, but not like the huruf ar-rakhawa. Okay, so the next pair of characteristics we will go to are the characteristics of al-isti'la wal-istifala. Al-isti'la wal-istifala. Al-isti'la is for something to be elevated. Ala. Isti'la, to be elevated, and al-istifala means to be lowered. So in the science of Tajweed, what this refers to, the isti'la means the elevation of the back of the tongue. The back of the tongue, as the letter is articulated, resulting in a pressure, between the back of the tongue and the roof of the mouth. So as the letter is elevated, the back of the tongue is, as the letter is articulated, the back of the tongue is elevated. And this results in a pressure between the back of the tongue and the roof of the mouth. And this causes the letter to be heavy. This causes the letter to be heavy. So this is isti'la. As for istifala, then this is absence of this pressure that you are applying to the letter by elevating the back of the tongue close to the roof of the mouth. Rather, the back of the tongue is lowered. So what are the letters of al-isti'la? They are in the phrase khussa daghtin qid. Khussa daghtin qid. Khussa daghtin qid. So these are the letters kha, sa, dad, ghain, ta, qaf, and dha. So these are the letters of al-isti'la. The rest of the letters of the Arabic alphabet, then they are all letters of al-istifala. So the effect of al-isti'la is that the letters are heavy. The letters are heavy. And quickly we will go through examples of the letters of al-isti'la. So for example, khussa dogtin kill. So kha, so you say the letter kha. You say khalaqa, khalaqa al-insan, khalaqa. So if the tongue is not raised high, the letter will be. So the characteristic in Tajweed of all these letters is they say at-tafkhim, to be heavy. So you have to make tafkhim of these letters. So khalaqa, and many times you will hear somebody will say khalaq al-insan, because he hasn't made it, he hasn't given it tafkhim. Khalaqa, not khalaqa. So when people are speaking Arabic, then that is fine, but when reciting the Quran, then that is not correct. For the sword, صراط الذين, صراط الذين. So if you don't give the sword al-isti'la, it becomes sirat. So you basically pronounce a sin. And that's the main difference between the sword and the sin, because remember, they have one makhraj. Okay, so the sword needs to have isti'la, because if it doesn't have isti'la, in this case, especially when it has a kasra, you will say sirat al-ladhin, and it will be a sin you will have pronounced. So sirat al-ladhin. For the dod, then غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. المغضوب. So the da in al-maghdub, so it needs to be high. Many people, the mistake, because the dot is difficult, they may be pronouncing a dal and make it heavy. They say al-maghdubi. So the makhraj in the first instance is wrong in that case. Wala dallin. So the tongue is high up at the back and it makes the letter heavy. So that's for the dod. Then the ghain, again, is a heavy letter. So you don't say ghairi. So you may hear somebody say ghairi al-maghdubi, ghairi. Then this is not, you are not doing the isti'la. So it's ghairi al-maghdub, ghairi al-maghdub. And the ta, like as we said, sirata, ato, sirata alladhin, wattur. So it is elevated at the back and heavy. The qaf, iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. So the qaf, again, it's heavy. If you don't raise the tongue, it will sound like a kaf. Even though they are not exactly the same makhraj, it will sound like a kaf, especially if it has a kasra. Then it will sound like a kaf. And the dha, al-zalimin, al-zalimin, al-zalimin. So if you don't make it heavy, you say al-zalimin, and it will be like a za or a dha. and this will not be correct. So these notes have to be taken, and those are the letters of al-isti'la, and bi-idhnillah, in the next episode we will continue and we'll give some examples of the letters of al-istifal, and we'll do the rest of the characteristics of the huruf. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.